Hello, lovelies. Housekeeping. I've been doing like a work diary, a daily of stuff I've accomplished each day. I have forgotten to post for the last 2 days, but that's because I was working into the evenings to try and get the OGGM's Shadow Dark Vigilantes done, which it is, but it still needs an index. So as soon as I have time to do that, that will be done, and then that will be up for sale. The OGGM now sells his stuff through me, so if you want to pick up any of his gubbins, drop by post-mort.com, and we will both get more money out of it if you buy it there than elsewhere, though other sites are available. I have too much to do this weekend. There's only one extra thing, really, but then there's other stuff on top of that, and I try to bank some sleep ahead of doing Tabletopless. The extra thing being inappropriate characters. So, yeah, I'm going back to inappropriate characters, but this is Inappropriate Characters Reborn, which will be me, the irascible Ryan David, and the pathologically neutral Eric Tenkar, covering the news of the month on the last Sunday of every month, and not shying away so much from the political, but provided neither of them is harbouring COVID denialism or anything equally objectionable, I don't think we should have too much of a problem doing stuff there. But yeah, I have a lot of other stuff on this weekend as well. Week in Geek and Tabletopless, same evening. And then my game on Grimstreams, which will be Machinations as part of a sort of promo educational thing on Sunday. And then immediately following that, Inappropriate Characters. So wish me luck and send me your amphetamines. On to the comments. On Fixing the Left, Cat with a Hat 2HD said, less Vanguard of the Revolution attitude, more what people on the ground level need attitude, both in policy and in messaging. Godspeed. So what I would like from the world is pretty radical, but I do think any solutions need to be more gradualist and pragmatic, and we need to address the problems of the moment, you know. Marmite today, jam tomorrow, rather than just jam tomorrow. If you like, you got to deal with the world as it is in order to get it closer to how you would like it to be, I think. And I don't think anything was particularly outlandish in what I presented, but Venger Satanis says, how can you so easily disregard the homogeneous racial makeup of those Scandinavian countries? Easily, because it's completely irrelevant. Your race has zero bearing on your capability to understand ideas or to hold ideas in your head, and that would include ideologies and so on. Culture, if you'd said culture, then maybe. But most countries have many subcultures, and above that, a sort of national or other sort of culture. So, like, Americans are American, but they are also, as they will never fail to remind you, also African American or Irish American, or I've got Scottish ancestors or whatever else, but they're all still Americans, right? And there's nothing in the minuscule differences in racial genes that would make someone incapable of understanding localized social democracy. So I disregard it because it's completely irrelevant. It only has the relevance we choose to give it, which needn't be any. Ace Up in a Sleeve says, I have my reservations about UBI, Universal Basic Income. It's a market solution to social issues first and foremost, which is why, as an idea, it's made its way to the right as well as the left, for example, with Milton Friedman's negative tax That was from a much bigger comment, but that's the part I want to pick out. To me, that suggests that it's a good idea, but I think the two sides have very different ideas about what UBI is, or rather, what they want to do with it. For me, I see it as doing away with a huge amount of the bureaucratic state, which saves money, and you can roll a whole lot of benefits into it, and you could even vary the amount of UBI to some extent based on various needs. But so long as everybody gets the basic UBI, then you do away with a whole lot of replicated effort, needless bloat, and you just provide for everybody to have a very basic standard of living, or even slightly better than that. So it's a huge catch-all solution to a big problem, especially if the AI bros get their way and like somewhere between 30 to 90% of us are replaced by automation and AI. You're going to need some way to keep people going, and UBI frees people up to be innovative, to think, to create new things, to live a life that they want to do. I think too many people draw their identity from work, and now that is a market indoctrination, if you ask me. My worth is my productivity. Seems kind of anti-human to me, whereas UBI says we all have an inherent worth, and it frees people up to do things. And that's what the experiments show. You know, people started businesses, people looked after their kids more, spent more time with their kids. You know, generally speaking, it has been a massive social good wherever it has been tried. So why not? It seems like an idea that's time has arrived. But there's resistance to it, of course. Just like there is resistance to wholesale telecommuting. It's just an old-fashioned paradigm that people are unwilling to let go of, and massive amounts of commercial property that are no longer needed, but sunk cost fallacy. Right? Imagine if we could convert a lot of that into housing. And that would solve two huge problems. I think I talked about some of this on the video itself, how technological infrastructure can help the environment, save people money, be as good as a pay rise, all of these other things. That's a kind of similar sort of step. But yeah. Happy Nihilist says, the modern Western left is honestly more interested in the aesthetic of social justice activism than actually understanding and solving social problems. I think that is true of a sort of professional activist class, and I also think it's true of the upper middle class and a certain guilty echelon of the truly wealthy. But the populist left still is fixated on the real material problems. Certainly that's of greater concern for me, because I think that you solve a lot of the social problems if you tackle the material problems. People are less inclined to see each other as enemies as they fight over scraps if there are more scraps, or actual proper amounts of things. And provided you are egalitarian in the way in which you hand these things out, like on the basis of need, then that helps eliminate a lot of these axes of resentment and hatred, and will address the social issues anyway. But yeah. On a very old video about Swords Fall. We remember Swords Fall, don't we? BeyBen says, now I want to read this whole comment even though it's slightly lengthy. BeyBen says, people who want to be paid want power and social clout, and none of them want to work to make other people understand, or to show them why they deserve money, power, or social clout. That isn't someone with moral superiority, that's a business consultant who refuses to market themselves. That's lazy and self-involved. That's not helping vulnerable, poor, or precarious people. It's people with high resources demanding their way up the ladder. Minorities and the disabled don't need perfect representation in a stupid game. They need basic human regard and to be free of an assumption of villainy. Humans need many things: inspiration, heroism, survival, and the ability to escape their mundane reality are great things that they can get from fiction and games. Many games are too focused on accurate depictions of humans in the first place. Another soapbox: working is good, but on behalf of all working humans, evaluations that consider less than 100% productivity in our work at all times to be insufficient can also go die in a hole. That's some petty BS that's become normalised again after most countries outlawed the worst madness of the industrial business model. Yeah, these weird social structures that have evolved where, particularly in the States, if you're unwell or less than 100% productive or want more money or more time off or whatever, that's bad. No wonder the first type of people want to get everything for free, and they're using the weapons they have in order to get success for free. Little wonder that such a society produces someone like Mr. Beast as well. Anyway, moving on. On the mythic versus the mundane, We Love TTRPGs says, I'm looking forward to your reaction to my Confessions of a Ghost Hunter video, which is in production. You should talk to Dying Breed Tabletop on Twitter, who's also interested in ghost hunting and things. I've told my ghost stories before. Perhaps if there's interest, I can do another video on that. Suffice to say, they were mundane explanations. Beloved of Freya says, I'm wondering if that's an Odin reference, because Delight of Frigg is one of Odin's names. Never mind. Beloved of Freya says, GrimJim, my favourite inappropriate character. After you left and replaced by Job, I disliked him out of spite for a while, but he eventually grew on me to be number 2. You'll always be number 1, though. Always better to be a pea than a poo. And as you may have gathered earlier on, Inappropriate Characters Reborn is on Sunday. On my review of Lancer, which came up because of the Crispy's Tabletop video, Edward says, isn't this game just another example of special people supporting other special people in hopes of righting some historical wrong, whereby your skill and ability to produce a valuable expansion to the TTRPG community as a whole are unnecessary? This seems very much a game that I want to play with my friends, not a game I want to introduce to other gamers. That might be a little unfair. It wasn't for me. I felt it was marketed and presented by its weirdly enthusiastic boosters as something it wasn't. And it wasn't appealing to me, as you can tell from the review. And the hard split between tactical play and roleplay was also a bit of an issue for me. But yeah, the people that like it are weirdly, and not in a good way, evangelical. So there's that to consider. On the Crispy Fried Tavern video, Cuddlefist says, I don't respect anybody that respects James Raggi. He's not an upstanding man of principle, and I'm disappointed that you have such shit judge of character. Glad I hadn't already subbed to your channel. Well then, off you fuck, because I have immense respect for James and his principles and the way in which he tries to stick by them. Nobody is able to do such things 100%. We all fall short. That is a thing that happens, but he's trying, just as I try. So I see a fellow traveller and a very similar soul in Jim Raggi to myself. So you can fuck off. Doc Necrotic says, it does look like he's starting to kick up harassment campaigns, something worthy of reports. Perhaps he shouldn't be chased off, but when it goes too far, he should be held accountable. Yeah, I'd agree with that second. I wouldn't want to silence someone like Crispy, especially since, while the emotional fallout is bad, quite often this kind of stuff backfires and gains people a lot of support, and I think that's happened with Jim. So, just keep an eye on the guy, I suppose. And if he oversteps, gets something badly wrong, like I think he did with Satine, then give him a dry slap across the face. On AI art, it was quite a spirited discussion, but most of it was things I've talked about before. LB says, nothing funnier than creative types talking about AI as just a tool. No fam, it's replacing you. You are now obsolete. You should be alarmed. You're the oak tree voting for the axe and calling your vote nuanced and mature. No, it's short-sighted and sophomoric. AI will only get better with time, and you're helping it improve. The ship has sailed, right? There is no putting this particular genie back in its bottle. But improvements seem to be very slow. Perhaps we've hit a limit of the technology as it currently exists, and it's only more applications that are going to be coming along. You still need someone to have the idea and to be able to express it in a way that the AI can understand and spit out, and you still need people with skill and capability to feed the beast. We will adapt, and it will become a tool, same as everything else has in the past, from industrialization to Photoshop to whatever else. Might not be a very nice process, but we will get there in the end. Alice Volker says, great video. Honestly, I'm all for AI and all that, even the art stuff, mostly because A, I can't draw for shit, and when some arts wizard tells me just start drawing, you'll get it, yeah, in however long, when I need the art now for a tabletop campaign or something for a book cover on one of my short stories or for whatever reason for personal use. Plus paying someone to do it, B, is nice for the artist, but I have had plenty of issues with artists before when I just want my money back. Yeah, I've gone on about how difficult that is and how upset I am that I now have to stick to relatively small pools of artists for the work that I pay for. But the aspect to that we also need to acknowledge is that AI has also made the hiring process more difficult, because you will find people passing off AI as their own work, or even passing off other people's work as their own work, and then submitting something a lot worse and then trying to bully you into paying them. It's been a really sudden change of nastiness and desperation and high-pressure sale tactics and scammers in art. It's really upset me, actually. Paul Berry, on an unrelated topic, says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Melanie Mac and Razor becoming were-leopards, referring to the fact that they have now become censorious buttholes. From Melanie Mac, the hypocrisy is enormous. You know, people can change, but that radically. Razor, the hypocrisy is also enormous. A lot of these people, the hypocrisy is enormous. And to me, that is how you know they're just grifters trying to feed on whatever it is whatever social tide is flowing in whichever direction. Whereas I look at someone like Critical Drinker, and he has gone against the flow a few times, so I'm willing to give him a bit more leeway than others, even though some others are particularly hostile to people like him. I mean, same as it ever was, same as it ever was, same as it ever was, same as it ever was. On Candela Obscura's review from ages ago now, Corey Burns says, Grim, do you not like yes ands or no buts, etc. in games? To which I said, not to the extent that they're used. And then Corey asks, how are they overused? Well, if you look at something like Candela Obscura, or even Blades in the Dark, or many Apocalypse World-derived games, and similar Theatre Kid games, everything is resolved that way. So every role can be extended ad infinitum, and it puts a lot more strain on the games master to come up with these things constantly, all the time, and that rapidly becomes quite exhausting. Places an enormous amount of creative effort on the games master. That said, I think there could be a place for something like that, particularly for solo play, for the oracles. And I've considered having a dice made with where the faces read no and, no, no but, yes, but, yes, and yes and then to use that as an oracle. So, okay, I'm gonna search this ruined car to see if there's any food. Roll the dice. 6. Yes, and so yes, there's some granola bars or whatever in the glove compartment, and you also notice that there's a bit of fuel left in the tank, which you could siphon off, for example. But yeah, there you go. That's my thought. It's my idea. You can't steal it. I've even inquired to some manufacturers about making such a dice, so we shall see how that goes. Zang.
In the grim, dark depths of a grim, dark mine, there's a grim, dark man with a grim, dark mind, and his grim, dark pen spends its grim, dark time scratching grim, dark tales for his grim, dark kind.